This is Hans Westman, and I am going to go through some pointers as far as how you should approach uh, your modeling and setting it up for this week. And this would be for the final project. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be setting up your template images within the 3D environment, and I'll show you how that's done. Both in Max as well as in Maya. But we're going to start out with Max and maybe another separate video in Maya. Okay, so we're going to do this first. We're going to start out by creating a plane. And we can actually create that plane as a square. And let's just go ahead and create it like this in the perspective view. And I can then actually move this like this because we're actually going to be two. I'm going to start out first of all by hitting Alt W so that I have this in the single view port. And let's first of all rotate this in the Y axis, or I should say probably the X axis. So I'm going to go to this icon up here, which is the rotate. And if I right click on that, it's going to bring up those attributes here, which I can set as far as the numeric values for positioning. And I can start out first of all by going on the Y-axis because we want to project on the X. And I'm going to rotate this like this. You'll see here with the spinner, if I do it like this on the positive, let's just go ahead and do it like that. Or I can put in the numeric value, which would be 90. That's what I'm going to do right there. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Shift. And then on this position, I'm going to pull it. And Shift will allow me to actually duplicate the object. And I'm going to set this with copy and hit OK. So now we have two planes which we can use in order to apply an image where we can use that to set this up. Before we do anything else, what we can do is this, is I can go to let's take a look and see what that position of this one is here first. The transform. I think that that's probably okay. But what we're going to do now is go to the move, and I'm going to right click here and just see what the coordinates are. If I put this at 0 and then put this one also at 0, this will place this in the 0, 0, 0 position in the 3D space. We can do the same thing here as well. This would be 0, and then this one as well too. And we'll be doing this eventually anyway, so let's just go ahead and set this up first like this. All right. Next step would be is that I would hit the letter M as in Michael or material, and that brings up my material editor. Now, this might be looking a little bit different than for you. This is old school. So if you click on modes, you have either the slate material editor, which deals with working with nodes. Personally, I kind of prefer things simple. So I go over to the compact material editor, which I'm grateful that Autodesk has decided to keep. And here we have these samples that we can view whatever it is that we're putting on here. Now, if you take a look at these three different things here, we have ambient light, diffuse light, and specular light. And if you think about this, without light, you can't see anything. So the diffuse channel is where you would be able to conjure up or pull up a texture that you would be able to see, because this is simulating how light would reflect on a surface, which would be the diffused light, if I can explain it in those terms. So we're going to go to a bitmap and hit OK. And automatically, you can see right here that I have a series of images, which I put into the images folder. But when I set my project, it will automatically take you to that folder, which is designated for images that you would be using for textures. And this is from a student from an earlier class. And it was simple, so I thought this would be a good thing as to work with. So what I'm going to do is start out, first of all, with the front view. Click on this, hit open, and you'll see that you have the image here on the surface. I can also change this from a circular, like this, sample type, or to a cube or cylindrical, one of three. I'm going to hit the cubicle right here so you can see what this looks like. If I double click on it, I can also separate that and enlarge it. So you can see this is the texture which I'm going to apply to this surface right here. And close that and just go back to the default, which is the circular. So let's start out first of all by taking a look at what would be the front view. And I'm going to hit F as in front, and that will show me the surface there. And if I hit F3, I can see that this actually is the side, which is correct, being is that it's got a lit surface. And I can take this, with this selected and this also activated, I can either click on this Assign Material to Selection, like this. And if I also turn this on, if I go up one level so I can get access to that, go to the top parent, you can see that if I show material in the viewport, if I click on this and activate it, now you can see it on the surface here. And what you will notice is that it's at a 45-degree angle, and I can actually change that here by going back into the diffuse channel right here. And you see where it says W, angle, U, V, and W. This will rotate this texture. And I'm going to do it in the negative, so I know which direction I'm going. So it will be minus 90, and I have this set up. You can also see that it's stretched, but I'm going to go ahead and hit R for the scale tool. And in the x-axis, I'm just going to bring this down so it's about correct as far as like in size. All right? So from there, let's go back to the perspective view. And let's take a look at this one right here. So if that was the front, let's go to L for the left view and see what happens if I hit F3. And you can see here that this one is a little bit different. So also you can see that this is a little bit angled, but we would be able to fix that if we wanted to. As a matter of fact, maybe we should just go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and angle this, not that one. Control Z. Let's go ahead and click on this one and rotate it a little bit like this so that it's going to essentially disappear. There we go. So now we know that that is perfectly flat. Now with the left view, it could be that it was the right view. Let's go to the R for right. That's wrong. So what we need to do then instead would be to go to the left view again. I'm going to hit Q and then hit L for the left view. We are in the left view right here. So that's a little bit moot. But I'm going to go ahead and reverse this polygon surface. The black is the back side of the polygon. So if I go to right click and I go down to convert to, I can go to an edit poly. And then what I can do is go to the polygon. And here I should be able to access the polygon. I should be able to access flip. So if I click on polygon here first, and maybe I have to do this first. I got to click on that. And then we go to the polygon. So let's go to polygon like this. Convert to polygon. Editable poly, excuse me. And then I can go to polygons. And now I can go down to flip. But I got to select this here first. So let's go ahead and select those. And then hit flip. So now you can see that I have the same colored surface. What I'm going to do here is then from the side, I'm going to go and select the next image from the side. And it would be, I'm guessing, front. It would be this one right here. If I'm doing from that side, I think. So let's just go ahead and hit open. And from there, then I can go and drag, and this is another way of doing it, drag and dropping it, and then go up one step right like that, turn this on here, and again, I'm going to have to go back here and rotate, but this time it looks to me like it would be also going in the negative, so let's go to minus 90. And then we're going to also do the same thing as we did before, which is hitting R for the scale tool. R for the scale tool. Oh, I guess we have to go up to editable poly first. And then let's just go ahead and close this down like that. Now, if we go back to the perspective by hitting P, you can see that these guys are pretty much aligned with each other. And what I can do then is I can take this one, and I can move this back, W on the one side. This one, let's go ahead and move this in another direction. I think it would probably be over here. And yeah, let's do it like this and see what happens right there. So I'm going to now pan this around and see where we're at. So you can see that I have like a reference on the one side here, a reference image on the other side like that. And I could actually flip this as well too, because I think I want to have it a little bit, I want to have it in a different way. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this by, yeah, there's a couple of things we could do. We could either do that in the textures or we can do that here, but I think I'm going to do it in the textures. So let's go to E, and then I'm going to go ahead and move this around right here. And you can see also down here at the bottom that it shows you how far you're going. But if I right click here, it also shows you to what degree that I've done this. And I'm going to go and put in 180. And now we can see this is on the other side, which means that it might be a good idea to go ahead and flip these polygons once again. And let's go ahead and do that. So now we have like these both facing in the direction that we need it to be done. Okay, next step here would be is you have like your reference images that you can work with. And I'm going to go ahead and close this file, save scene as, and then from here, it should go to scenes, which it did. My primary folder is 3ds Max scenes. I set that up for here. So automatically it will go into that folder where you're going to be saving your scenes. And I'm going to call this template images. Template image setup as a reference, 01. So I have multiple files that I will be saving along the way. All right, so from here, Q, I can go ahead and go back to the Create tab, which is right here. Well, let's do something like this. Let's go ahead and create a cylinder. And the cylinder that I'm going to create is going to be pretty simple. And it doesn't have to be as detailed as this one. You always want to start simple. So if we go ahead and do this, I'm going to go ahead and if you take a look at this one right here, if I hold down the S key, that would be your toggle right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, in the center here, create a cylinder. F4 shows the number of polygons that you've created on the surface. And if you hit S again, that will turn off your snap tool. So if we go to the top view, you'll notice that now we have this perfectly symmetrical in the middle. We have this one over here on the side. And let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the modifier tab, select this guy, and I'm going to move this a little bit in like this, just so that I have something a little bit more symmetrical. Move this a little bit back. And that's just like some housekeeping here. All right. So back to P, and we can see what we have. So if I go to the front view, now you can see what I've got going on here. And Control Z, we need to select that. And I'm going to move this thing down just about like that. So from here, F3, that's not going to work so well. F3, I can start to actually work with this object. And F4, so I can do this. But before I do that, I want to simplify it. I don't want it to be so complex as what I have right there. So I'm going to change the sides to this. It says 18. If I change it instead to 8, you can see all of a sudden that I have a different count here, and that's adequate for what it is that I need right now. So 8 is fine. And right now we have the height segments, which would be 5 right there. And then we have the cap, which would be 1. And, you know, I can actually go down to 1 right here. So now I have something very, very basic that I'm working with. And we can see what we can do. And this is because of what it is that I'm actually working with right here. So what I could do here then is I can start out by right-clicking on this, going down to, see if I can move this up a little bit also. Right-click on this, go to Convert to Editable Poly, which gives me access to these elements right here, or components. And I'm going to go ahead and hit Vertices, and I'm going to select those vertices down here at the bottom. And what I can do now is hit R for the scale, and being as that this is perfectly planar to the z-axis, the z-plane. Even if I were to do an x, y, and z symmetrical scale, it's still going to hold its plane very much like that. So you can see right here, if I do that, then I can now start to work with this. And obviously there are different ways that we can go to this, but if I just go ahead and set this up here like this on the one side, and then I hit R, and then I have this down like that. And then if I go to the bottom here and move these guys up like this, you can see that it's kind of tapered. So I'm going to go ahead and hit R first, and I'm going to scale these down just a little bit like that, so it's sort of in alignment. Now I can go to the perspective view once again, and right-click and go to my top level, just so that I have everything set up right here. And now I have something that I can start to work with. So let's take a look at this one more time. Control Z and Q so that I don't mess up anything. Alt middle mouse button allows me to move this around. So right click and I go to the polygon. And from here, with the editable mesh, when I go down to the polygons, I have this option to do an extrude. So from here, if I do this, you can see I've moved this down a little bit. And then if I hit R, then I can go ahead and scale this down a little bit like that. And then if I hit extrude again, and then I do the same thing, down a little bit like that. And then maybe one more extrude. Every time I release, it'll be another extrude. R to scale this down, about like this. And then from there, I can go to extrude once again. And bring it down like that. R once again here. R. So I start out with a very, very basic shape. And then I'm going to hit Q and see if I can't rotate this a little bit. So now you can see where it starts to build up its shape. And I'm really not going to go any further than that. I just wanted to kind of give you a sense as how you would start with modeling, and you have your reference images directly in the object, in the viewport. And again, if we were to look at the folders here, let me just go ahead and go to these folders like this. And let's take a look now at where we're at. If we go to the desktop, we go down to 3ds Max, double click. You'll see this is your project. And inside of that, you have your scene assets, and then you have your images. And this is where you have all those images stored. So when you're ready to turn in your work, what you can do then is zip your primary folder, which in this case would be 3ds Max, and all the subfolders will be intact and will also contain those components or assets that you need in order for the project to be complete, which means that if you turn in just a single file, it won't necessarily turn in the images that you're working with. And that makes it difficult to evaluate the work that you're doing when you submit those. Okay, so much for 3D Studio Max. Now we're going to go over to Maya.